Good evening, Bahamas. Coming up tonight, an outspoken Grand Bahama MP says he's come to terms with government's $65 million hotel purchase. Meanwhile, residents in Inagua shaken up, but only slightly, by an earthquake that struck the northwest region of Haiti. Plus, some do-it-yourself tips for creating that special floral arrangement.
Our news is brought to you by Alive.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. I'm Jared Higgs. Topping news tonight, despite voicing strong opposition to the government's controversial decision to buy the Grand Lucayan Hotel last month, Pine Ridge MP Frederick McAlpine says he has finally come to accept that fact. McAlpine says the only hope now for Grand Bahamians is that the government succeeds in its plan for a quick sale of the property. Jasmine Brown reports.
While I do not think that the government's purchasing of the Lucayan Strip was the best economic idea, I, like most Bahamians, have accepted the fact that the government has purchased and that they have stated with the intent to sell sooner rather than later.
The government is purchasing the resort for $65 million, with $30 million paid up front. The $30 million was paid by an advance from the government's contingency fund. McAlpine, who was against the purchase of the depressed hotel property, said he is hoping the government can execute a quick sale as promised.
Now that the government has done so, I, like many other Grand Bahamians, am waiting on the government to produce and perform with regards to the Lucayan Strip.
However, he insisted he still does not believe the reopening of the hotel will solve the long-standing economic issues on that island.
Grand Bahama, in my view, is in need of an economic stimulus that goes beyond the purchase of a Lucayan Strip. I can recall, like most Grand Bahamians, before the closure of these hotels, or the hotels, the 3 hotels on the Strip were occupied. Grand Bahama was still suffering economically under the leadership of successive governments and the Grand Bahama Port Authority.
Last week, Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis accused the Grand Bahama MP of wanting Grand Bahama to fail. McAlpine quickly fired back, calling the Prime Minister's comments unfortunate and disappointing, as he also insisted he will not be silenced from speaking out. McAlpine also accused the Minnis administration of overseeing the increased suffering of Grand Bahamians since it came into office in May 2007. McAlpine says the people of Grand Bahama deserve more.
The people of Grand Bahama voted for better and for relief. Our unemployment rate is the highest throughout the entire country. Our people are morally and socially depressed, and our economy remains in the doldrum. I don't just talk about Grand Bahama. I reside on the island with the people and only wish to see the progress and revitalization of the island's economy.
Reporting for our news, I'm Jasmine Brown.
Thanks, Jasmine. The Bahamas was one of 4 countries impacted by a 5.9 magnitude earthquake that struck near northwest Haiti on Saturday night. Residents of Inagua widely reported experiencing shaking within their homes. The Bahamas Department of Meteorology issued an earthquake warning for the southeast Bahamas and Turks and Caicos shortly after the 8:35 p.m. quake that took place in the Mona Passage between Haiti and Cuba. No tsunami warning was issued at that time. In Haiti, reports indicate that at least 12 people were killed and 188 injured as a result of the quake in the coastal city of Port-de-Paix. The earthquake was accompanied by 3 aftershocks, one of those coming in at 5.2 on the Richter scale on Sunday afternoon. With the seismic event toppling buildings at its worst, leaving behind significant structural damage, the president of Haiti has called for calm, stating on Twitter that he has called for all of the country's resources to be directed towards assisting recovery efforts. In other news, Leader of Government Business in the House of Assembly and Bamboo Town Member of Parliament Renwood Wells gave a recent review of the government's legislative agenda for the next few months. Wells called that agenda aggressive, saying it will focus primarily on financial and constitutional matters.
We have a very aggressive agenda about issues that needs to come up. We're still in full flung with the OECD dealing with the OECD matters and trying to make sure we meet that timetable. But we're also excited about some of the constitutional amendment bills that are coming, and there's a whole host of things we desire to take care of as a government.
Since coming into office, the Minnis administration has passed several key pieces of legislation. The government outlined its legislative agenda in the speech from the throne that was read by Governor General Dame Marguerite Pinling in May of 2017. In it, the Minnis administration pledged to bring legislation that would modernize and increase the efficiency of the judicial system to give wider access to justice. The government also pledged to strengthen the accountability and transparency of the fiscal operations of the government in the Ministry of Finance, improve systems in the Ministry of Finance for public finance management, as well as establishing term limits for the Prime Minister and campaign finance legislation. Wells says they are working steadily to achieve those goals.
Look at what we have done in a year. This government, and I don't want people to judge me like Trump, when Trump says he's, as president of the United States, he did more than any other president before. But the record would show that this government has done more in the House of Assembly by passing legislation in 1 year than any previous government has done. Go and check the record.
Well, government ministers and some backbenchers found themselves defending their place in a 20-member delegation that recently traveled to the United Nations 73rd General Assembly in New York. The Minnis administration's travel habits have come under scrutiny, despite its insistence that the country's work is being done. Members of the public offering mixed views on the topic. With Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis promising to take a backbencher on every international trip in the future, questions still linger over the cost of his most recent trip to the United Nations, whose delegation included his wife Patricia, 3 cabinet ministers, and 13 other officials. The delegation size was criticized by the likes of Pine Ridge MP Frederick McAlpine, who lamented the travel spending as inconsistent with government's fiscal position. Some members of the public we spoke with agree with McAlpine.
No, it's not necessary, because we have the World Wide Web right now. It's not necessary. You don't have to travel every time they have a seminar or a conference going on. And it's not, the people in the country are hurting. Those monies can be allocated to something else.
I think no, mainly because you stand up in Parliament every other week and you're saying, well, we don't have the money for this, we don't have the money for that, and then you turn around the next week and then you do careless spending in terms of like buying the Grand Lucayan so that you could profit foreigners when you're essentially not doing the same thing for Bahamian businesses. So I think the traveling budget needs to decrease. Just like how you could decrease 10% budgets all across the board, you could decrease your traveling budget as well.
You know, Freedom of Information Act, so you don't really know what goes on when they then come back from these trips, so you don't know if taxpayers' money is being used, you know what I mean, efficiently or whatever. So I don't.
Not everybody thought government travel was such a bad idea, though. Many echoed the justification that travel is necessary to promote and advocate on behalf of the country.
I think the government needs to travel to get tourism, to get this economy back in order. So that's my take on it.
You think that it's worth it? The Prime Minister said that he's going to take backbenchers on more trips with him, I'm guessing to give them more international experience. You think that's necessary?
Yes, I think that's necessary. The reason being because they're junior ministers and they need to travel, they need the exposure, the experience for when they move from the back bench to the front bench. So I think that's an excellent idea that the Prime Minister is doing.
All government and all staff and all workers, they do travel for business purposes. Networking with the world and see how better they can help the country. If you don't travel, you won't know what the other people do on the other side of the world. So you need to travel to know, to compare how we can better help the country.
Norbert Lockhart, a security guard who hails from Ragged Island, says government can travel all at once, but he wants to see the results.
If you're saying you're going to the bank for me and you ain't never coming back with some money, I can start asking you why you keep on going to the bank and you telling me you're going to the bank for me and I ain't getting no money. So if you're doing all this traveling, right, and it's supposed to be representing me and all this kind of stuff, I don't see no results, okay? The only thing I see is from 7.5 to now 12%.
Dr. Minnis has said that financial records of his travels are made available during the annual budget released in June. So to come on our news, the Bahamas looks to expand its ship registry into Asia and a record-breaking year for local banks' charitable efforts. All that is coming up when our news comes back.